need to introduce yourself to the crowd.
I'm Rose, and I am Hanson's older sister, aka second mom.
Yeah. Do you have more?
Your hands are dirty. You just touched like everything. We are on a high-speed train right now from Shanghai to our dad's hometown of Fuyang, Anhui province.
So we haven't visited our family in, well, it's been 5 years for me. The last time we visited our family at the same time was like 10 years ago.
No, Hanson.
8 years ago?
It was like 6 years ago. Oh no, it was about 8 years
like 8 years ago.
We were there all together.
Yeah.
You were 12.
Yeah.
You were a little shit. You
Yeah.
still are, but less. One of the perks of being in Asia,
Oh, the snacks.
snacky snacks.
Yeah.
Yum.
So there's a lot to talk about their family. We don't really know where to start, so we're just gonna use these ChatGPT generated questions. I have a few. I don't know if they're gonna be good or not. So how do we feel about reconnecting with our family after such a long time?
Oh man, I'm so happy to see them again.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
I'm excited too.
You know, if they lived in the States or if we lived in China, we'd be seeing them on the daily. We'd all be living together,
Yeah.
basically. I wish I could visit more often.
Because the last time that I was here, I was still like
A little
a little boy. I was 15 the last time I was here.
Reality check, you still are a little boy.
I might be a little boy, but I've grown a lot.
You
in the
have.
last 5 years.
Proud of you. Yeah, it'll be nice to see everyone. Family is very important, especially in the Chinese culture. We all know that. All of the dinners, lunches, like these giant banquets, as our parents will call them,
Yeah.
for all of our relatives and extended family, because it's rare to get the aliens, the foreigners,
Yeah, the American.
back into China.
Who are you most excited to see?
I don't know. I'm just so close with everyone. 伯伯、小姑姑、龙龙、
Long Long.
奶奶.
Oh yeah, Nai.
Don't forget her.
She lived in the U.S. with us for like
A few months.
a few months during the developmental period of my life, for sure. So we did make a conscious decision to not stay in China for, I guess, more than a few days. Like when we were planning this trip, we both agreed, like, yeah, like staying here for too long would be pretty exhausting, which might not be a common sentiment from like other Chinese Americans. I think for us, it's pretty true. But like, why? Why do you think that is?
Well, it's tiresome to not be able to speak the language as fluently as we'd like. Part of that connection is that communication, and if you can't communicate adequately, then the connection is like often missed a little bit.
I mean, that and just the culture gap is pretty big
The culture
at this
gap.
point.
They'll never understand how we live,
Yeah.
and we'll never understand how they live. Might not agree with
Like-
how we spend our money or what we do with our time.
We already disagree with our parents on that one. So.
And then just like the food and the sanitation, I get sick almost every time. I
Oh
come here.
yeah.
So we got to be really careful.
Whenever you're putting anything in your mouth, really.
And then all the travel. So from Korea to Shanghai was a 2-hour flight. And then we had to wait 4 hours to board a train that took 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
That's a 13-hour travel day. Tiresome AF.
AF.
What?
My friends say AF.
Is that a Gen Z thing?
They just be like, oh, I'm tired of AF.
It's the dumbest shit I've ever heard.
This is the first time that we're traveling alone together.
I know.
At least- Well, we're gonna meet up with our parents later tonight.
They'll never know that we f***ed up the itinerary. And poor little Hanson had to travel from LAX
Yeah.
to downtown Seoul by himself. They'll never know that we went bar hopping the first night in Seoul.
Well, that was fun.
But I'm excited to spend some quality time with you because ever since you were 6 and I was 18, I didn't live in the house. We never
Yeah.
lived under the same roof since you were 6 years old.
Anyway, that's all I have, honestly. Stay tuned for clips of our family members. I'm gonna do a little I'll try to make it cinematic. We'll see what happens. Okay. My parents were the only ones in their entire families to immigrate to the States. I'm an ABC, American-born Chinese, for those that don't know. My sister, despite being born in Shanghai, has lived in the States since she was 4. Having been completely socialized in the US and not in China, it's safe to say that we both feel a little distant from our heritage and Chinese culture in general, especially since we only visit China once every few years. There's a massive culture gap, not just between us and our family in China, but between us and our own parents as well. And deep down, I feel pretty guilty about that. My parents worked so hard to get to this point. They grew up in poverty, worked their way up to a nice life in China, and then re-experienced poverty for several years after immigrating to the States. Where are we headed to right now?
Grandpa's grave. We do this every time we come home. Whole family's going.
The cousin and the uncle on the front. Cousin 怎么叫?
Cousin 怎么叫？你叫他哥。
哥。
哥 but actually it's 表. But in Fuyang, you say 哥 as in like your own brother. 哥。
阜阳话。
阜阳话。
阜阳话。My mom would tell me stories of how they could barely afford to buy a single yogurt cup with the flavor that my sister wanted at the grocery store. By the time my parents had me, they had worked hard to put themselves in a better spot financially, but they continued to carry with them a pretty frugal attitude towards money and the value of hard work fully ingrained in their beliefs after a lifetime of working hard. My sister and I, on the other hand, are at a point in our lives where we have a good amount of disposable income and more privilege than our parents had at our age. My parents chose the hard route to make my life better, and that's something I'll never forget. It's something that no amount of money could fully repay them for. But I also feel guilty about my relationship, or the lack thereof, with the rest of my family in China. I'm much closer to my dad's side of the family than my mom's, but the only time I've ever spent talking to them was when we visited China or they visited the States, which are few and far between. I've never made efforts to stay in touch with them over WeChat, and that's fully on me. My lack of Chinese skills, the culture gap, and my busy life are all things that I've used to justify this. But honestly, they don't.说 hello
Hello Good morning 是早晨好好
Good morning 是早晨好。
对。他
你应该活很长时间，还有很多机会看到你。
那姑姑会说，到我10年死不了。
对呀，对呀，你身体太棒了，
身体还可以。
对，
我的眼好跳的，我好挤眼。
我们
带着这里，这就好了，
好看，
瞧不着眼了。
你们什么时间要回到美国看我们？
等明年我就退休了。
明年？
明年我退休了就没工作了。你奶奶的身体要好啊，我就带她去美国去。
她身体现在很好。
对，现在很好，到时候明年应该也很好。
你们要住在我们的家还是姐姐？
姐姐没有家 ，OK？
姐姐
住在你们的家。
好。
将来以后会住在汉森的家。
龙龙哥他们昨天说他们也明年想来美国。
哦，旅游一下。好的，那我们一起去。
他们可以带他们的孩子。
带他们的孩子。
哦，他说不要忘了，带他们的孩子。
Now, as I grow older, I'm realizing more and more how important family is, and how much I've ignored that growing up. Maybe this is my prefrontal cortex finally developing, or maybe I'm just at a point in my life where I have the time to stop and truly self-reflect on this stuff. Who knows? What I do know is that I still have a lot to do to develop, maintain, and mend the relationships that I have with my family. I don't want to sound like I'm ripping off Wayman's famous line in Everything Everywhere All at Once here, because I truly mean it. I've realized that these aren't excuses to not stay in touch with my family at all, because in another life where my parents stay in China and raise my sister and I there, I know I would have been extremely close with them. But the clock of life is ubiquitous, and I'm finally beginning to hear it tick. I just hope I'm not too late.